As I've mentioned within the last couple of days, I feel like I've clicked out of the worst of the worst. The depression, the feeling suicidal, the not knowing what to do with myself next. So defaulting to Netflix and YouTube and staying in bed. And just now, I kind of realized what the difference feels like in a way. Because I was getting ready for the day and I was stopped by this feeling of, okay, I need to put on my makeup, but I want to grab the different types of lithium orotate I have and show it on video. Oh, and I need to write this down, and I want to write this on my blog all at the same time. So the brain goes from no possibilities, feeling like I may as well end my life, or it's painful, so I want to, or I could, to there's 5 different things I could do at one time. I just had some probiotic. And also when I was in the shower, I had this sense that it's possible that depression and mania are 2 different worlds. So I might think I'm in an elevated state, slightly manic, or I was just recently depressed. Or it could be that when I'm depressed, I'm in a different world. I'm in that sort of lower energy world. And when I'm manic, I'm in this other world. It's like 2 different worlds. Because a lot of us, from what I've read, feel like there's parallel realities or multiple realities or different realities or some other beautiful world, heaven on earth. And people who are spiritual writers and teachers and philosophers can say, oh, there's a heaven on earth, it's right here, why can't we see it? And then people who are bipolar a lot of times experience that other world or get a sense of it or tap into it or walk in both or walk in one or the other, and then they're called crazy because they're not just sitting in peace saying there's another world. They're actually walking in one or the other, and it's quite disorientating and would make anyone moody. So what I'm saying is, depression is when the brain is in or has come back from that beautiful world, and it's in this other energy that makes it feel like everything is molasses. It's hard to move, it's hard to do anything, it's hard to know what to do next. So I'm wondering about that idea of mania or depression being an indication of which world one's in, which is one in the heaven on earth world that Eckhart Tolle mentions, a new heaven and a new earth, and it's here and blah blah blah. And I love Eckhart Tolle. Or are we in the depressed world where there's war and killing and murder and rape and all that? So it could have something to do with that. And another interesting thing I realized was I listened to that Schumann resonance frequency on YouTube yesterday when I was doing something on my computer, writing something. And I was listening to it before when I was kind of depressed at some point in these 3.5 months that have been really hard. And then when I stopped listening to them with my headphones, particularly these kind of headphones, like over the ear completely. It doesn't work with the in-ear ones. I would notice that once I stopped listening, once I took the headphones off, and I talked about this with myself, if I shook my head, it felt like warping metal, like taking a very thin sheet of metal and like wiggling it around, holding it on both ends and wiggling it, and it's going wah, 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 wah. And so I thought that was interesting because I'd go like this, and it was like doing the whole shaking of this metal for warping metal. I'm like, okay, that's weird. But when I did it yesterday, when I listened yesterday, something even weirder happened. When I took the headphones off, I could hear this slight warping metal sound without shaking my head. It was just there. It was almost like, and I've talked about how I can hear this sort of sound all the time that seems to correlate with this circular motion my body does, like this vortex of energy, in terms of the period or frequency of its movement. And it was like that sound was the substrate for holding on to this metallic type sound. It was as if it was sort of waving on top, as if this constant sort of drone sound that isn't entirely unpleasant was like the entire ocean, and then this metallic sound was like the waves on top making the sound. So the whole ocean would make a sound underneath that would be more fluid, and the waves are more crashy on top. So anyways, that was really interesting. But then something even more weird happened. I decided to plug my ears. And the thing was of it that the sound did not change. It didn't decrease in volume, not the drony sound that goes with the motion of my heartbeat that I discovered when I was in California, or the metallic sound. So the brain kind of stores sound. It stores sound. And we know that. Somebody says something to us, we store that. We store them saying it to us. We record it. So I don't know what that means, that now it's holding on to the sound even more. And then I would say it takes a minute or two before I can't hear it at all. And the sound is more pronounced when, the metallic sound is more pronounced when I have my fan, my heater on. So it's like it gives it more sound energy to sort of bounce off, like mixing sound frequencies, as if one was making a song and certain frequencies cancel each other out if there's too many in the same kind of range. So the sound of this Schumann resonance and the sound of these metallic waves and the sound of the heater were sort of dancing with each other. And like I said, it subsided over about 2 minutes. It's not like I permanently hear that sound. But it's just kind of interesting. Not sure what it's all about, but this has something to do with the Schumann frequency for sure. And the other day, the last couple of days, I've sat quietly, kind of meditating spontaneously for a little bit, and could kind of feel the dance of these energies and feeling like I'm more that than anything else. It's more fundamental than the material. There's something like we're light, sound, and gravity. And then the other thing I discovered was that, and I don't know if I said this before, Dolores O'Riordan, who passed away, still no news on exactly how, was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I think it said she said it in either 2015 or 2017. I can't remember if she was diagnosed in 2015 or before, or she's always had troubles like this before she was diagnosed. But it was interesting because I was reading an article. Where is it? That's my blackout blinds in the background. So this is an article on a website, independent.ie, and it's titled Dolores O'Riordan's Brave Struggle Against Bipolar and Mental Health Issues. So that's the citation. And she had trouble after she broke up from her husband in I think 2014, so that's when she really started struggling. And she also had trouble when her father died in 2011. So trauma of divorce, trauma of death of a father. And then this is where it gets interesting. It says, quote, speaking on the Billboard's Soul Sisters podcast, she said, I felt when he, her father, passed away, he didn't actually leave this world fully. I felt him around me a lot for a while. I could feel him trying to protect me and communicate with me. And there was a lot of weird little coincidences and stuff that made me think that maybe he was somewhere in between, not necessarily crossed over properly. And we all wonder about death, where people go, and what happens. But certainly, they cross over from this dimension to another one. And she was also sexually abused, more trauma as a child. So it got my attention, this stuff she says about another dimension, crossing over to another one. And I feel like when we get a sense of that, like there's other dimensions to cross over to without physically dying, and then there's ones to cross over to possibly when we do die. And I don't know if this is part of the whole mechanism of it, but I feel like sometimes when we get a sense of something more in touch with, there's other possibilities, other dimensions, other realms, and we don't know how to get there. Sometimes we feel like one way to get there is to die, is to end our life. So I think that possibility becomes stronger, such as how people who are diagnosed as bipolar do end their life 20% of the time, which is a lot higher than people that aren't diagnosed with bipolar. 20% of people in general don't die by ending their life. Otherwise, there'd be like 1 in 5 people ending their life, which is a lot. But for bipolar, that's how it is. So this isn't related to Dolores O'Riordan per se, but I feel like it's possible when we're just really working hard to try to get to that other dimension. One of the possible ways to get there is to end it all. And maybe we do go there and get there. Nobody knows. And I'm not saying when people who are bipolar end their life, they're thinking, well, I'm crossing over to get there. It's very scary, because the times that I've come close to ending my life or feeling like my life is ending and I'm going to do it even though I kind of know I'm not, it feels like I am dying of suicide even though I'm not. Like experiencing that experience fully without actually physically dying. And it's just as scary as actually dying. And maybe more scary, maybe less. Maybe less scary because maybe death isn't as scary as we think. And maybe more scary because we're not actually dying and death is less scary than we think. So I'm not sure if that's making sense. It's probably not. And I'm not saying this to say that she ended her life. That hasn't been determined yet. But I had no idea she was diagnosed as bipolar. And in my teenage years, I had a 5-disc CD player, and I was so happy about it. And it had a wake-up alarm on it, so it would turn on and play the music in the 5-disc player. And the first CD I had in there was of the Cranberries. And it was the one with the yellow cover. And it had Free to Decide on it. I can't remember what the title of the album was. But it was the one with Salvation. But anyway, the first song on the CD is called Hollywood. And it starts off very quiet, like... So that part didn't wake me up. But anyone who's heard the album knows that the song then goes on to go... quite markedly louder than the initial part. And so that would wake me up. I'd wake up to the Cranberries playing Hollywood, and it was like... And I remember in my half awake stupor, I'd think, man, I need to change that CD to position 2 or something. So that's not what wakes me up, because it's not a slow or easy wake up. It's a song where it's supposed to be really loud, go from really quiet to really loud really quickly. And so yeah, that woke me up for who knows how many months or years before I finally changed it to something else or had some other wake up mechanism. So yeah, I had all of their albums, and I think I still do, because I ripped them onto my computer when technology changed over. One of my favorite bands for sure. And I have a playlist that I've talked about called Singing, where I sing songs when I'm driving, just for fun. Songs I like to sing. And on there I have Ode to My Family and Joe, which is a song off that album with the yellow cover as well. It's very melodic and beautiful with its Spanishy type guitar. So yeah, hopefully it won't be that she ended her life, but it could very well be that. So yeah, I'm really grateful that my brain seems to be back online. I'm gonna go out today and enjoy the day.